Good evening, everyone. I hope we're doing well. Let me try and see how many of us. Okay, 14 people. Fantastic. Can everybody see my screen, please? Oh, I guess you could because Saeed just read it off it. Well, welcome to our August capacity building session, which is going to be on emotional intelligence and leadership. Now, the truth is that we're all friends here. We know ourselves. Glad to see some people I haven't seen in a while in the house. But I felt it was important for us to talk about this because, especially because of the situation that we're going through in the country and the pressure that it has put on a lot of people. I mean, I can feel the stress that people are having to cope with on a daily basis. And I thought to myself, what can we talk about that would enable us to handle this situation not just with grace, but with resilience and even benefit from it, believe it or not. And what came to me was talk about emotional intelligence and how it affects leadership. Now, if you look into history and even the people that you know or you've heard about, there is really no one who excels as a leader without facing adversity. And consequently, adversity or adverse situations only serve to make us stronger and to make us better able to deal with situations we may even encounter in the future. You and I will agree that you're not the same person that you are at the end of the adverse situation than you were you're a different person at the end than you were at the beginning. And it all depends on how you handle the situation you find yourself in. Where does emotional intelligence come in? It's become such a buzzword that I think a lot of us just believe we know what it's all about. It's just not about keeping your temper. It's about being able to use your emotions and I don't want to use the word manipulate, but to dexterously use them in a way that enables you to gain the most out of any situation you are in, whether it's even an adverse one or even a good one. Because at the end of the day, life has its ups and downs. What you went through today isn't what you're going to go through next. And we can't continue to go through life thinking that things have to be easy. I can go so far as to say that life is designed not to be easy. And at every stage of growth, there's some hurdle you have to overcome. I mean, imagine when you were a child and you came out as a baby, the first thing you had to learn was, how to communicate what you're feeling to your parents, and they had to, know what this signal means when she cries or when he cries, what he's trying to say. Then you have to learn how to crawl. Crawled on your belly for a while before you start crawling on your hands and legs. Then the next hurdle was to start walking, and then to start walking properly, and then growth. I mean, all sorts of things happen, and this is just one of those many things that we have to go through life. And I do believe that we've got what it takes to thrive even through this and be that person that other people can reach out to as someone to encourage them through times of need. So we're going to do a case study. You and I, we're going to rub minds together on this case study, and we're going to get some treasures out of that case study. And then we're going to talk about what emotional intelligence is. Maybe it's something different from what you've always thought it was. The components, why leaders need it, why it's important. Sorry, that's not supposed to read in HR. It's important in HR, but it's important generally, and how you can improve your AI. So let's go ahead. EI, sorry, not AI. Sorry, AI is so common nowadays. It's become something that comes naturally. EI, which is emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. All right, emotional intelligence and leadership. Let's talk about this case study. I'm sure we're all familiar with this gentleman in the picture. Can I just, can you just indulge me and let me see the name? Give me his name. Yeah, you are familiar with the person, but I'd like to see his name. If you know who he is, please type his name in the chat box. Fantastic. Peace, how are you? I know Peace is a movie lover, so I guarantee that she will know who he is. I'm just smiling now. Fantastic. This is Will Smith, and he's a popular guy. A lot of people know him, but I'll say a number of things about him for you to kind of know where he's coming from. Now, he came from humble beginnings. and made his breakthrough role in a sitcom called Fresh Prince of Bel Air. He went through a transition from comedian to the big screen, the silver screen as they call it, and eventually became someone who was well known. Now, this particular day was a pivotal one in his career because it would be the third time, I believe, that he was nominated for an Oscar, and as you can see, he eventually won it. Now, I've mentioned that, he was a pretty popular guy. He's a four-time Grammy Award winner. One time he was called the most bankable male lead in Hollywood, which means that you can almost guarantee that any film that he's in would make money. Yes, they didn't all make money. I mean, they didn't always make money, most certainly. But for the most part, all his films more or less did very well. I mentioned the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. People thought that maybe this like some would say is the best sitcom of all time. Others would disagree. And then he's gunning for this club in Hollywood that they call the EGOT Club. It's a select club of people that have won an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Award, which are the biggest awards in Hollywood. He's won a Grammy and Oscar. He's actually been nominated for a Tony and an Emmy. He just hasn't won yet. And so because he's been nominated, people feel that his chances of getting it is high. So in Hollywood parlance, he's just the guy you want to be. Everybody liked him. He had extremely likable personality coming across the screen. He's the kind of person you feel, you'd be comfortable with, even though he's a star. He's the kind of person you feel if you invited him to your house, he would come. But on this fateful day, something happened that changed Will Smith's fate, perhaps forever. I'm going to play this video now, and let me know whether you can hear the sound. I'd like to warn us of the graphic language, but I guess we're grown-ups here, but it's to prove the point. So I'm going to play it now, and please let me know. I'm going to play a small clip, and you let me know whether you can hear it, and I know if I have to make any adjustments, okay? So let me start.
You know who's got the hardest job tonight? Javier Bardem and his...
Please let me know in the chat room if you can hear. You can hear, fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to play the rest of that clip now. Please give me a sec. I would like to... Okay.
Wife are both nominated. Now, if she loses, he can't win. He is praying that Will Smith wins. Like, please, Lord. Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? That was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Richard. Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
Wow, dude.
Yes.
It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
I'm going to, okay? Okay. That was a greatest night in the history of television. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so that was what happened. And that was what was called the slap that was heard around the world. To a great extent, a lot of people actually thought it was scripted. They thought it was part of the show. And, they were laughing at it. And then when Will Smith spoke, they were like, could this be real? I'm sure till today, a number of people think that perhaps it was a joke. But I think for the most part, people thought to themselves that no, this wasn't expected at all.
You know who's got
Now we're going to have a little bit of a conversation, and I'd like to hear your feedback. What did you think about Will Smith's reaction? What did you think about Chris Rock's reaction? And then compare the two. I'd like people to volunteer to talk here. If not, I'm going to call on you. Aha. P said she thought it was staged. Okay, fantastic. Let me go to the chat. I want to see who's raising their hand here. Okay, fantastic. I see Peace. Okay, Peace, can you unmute? Go ahead and let's hear from you.
Hello, Ma. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like I'm very well, thank you. So I feel like this video is like the perfect example to use in this situation, to be honest. And how do I feel about Will Smith's reaction? To be honest, I feel it was totally uncalled for, which is why I said I initially thought it was staged. I never believed that he would, do such a thing, especially seeing the kind of stage that he was on. This was like an award show that literally the entire world was watching. And while I understand that he was hurt or probably even embarrassed on behalf of his wife because of how Chris Rock spoke to her, I feel like he could have handled it differently. He could have suppressed those emotions and sort of waited up until afterwards, maybe after the show had ended, and then walked up to Chris Rock to really address the situation. So him walking up onto stage to slap him, going back to his seat to even shout and scream those words. I mean, it was a lot. He could have done better in that regard. And for Chris Rock, I feel like he handled it perfectly, to be honest. If I was in his shoes, I would have been too stunned to speak. They would have had to go on an emergency break because I'm sure he was like, what's going on? But I feel like he's so good at what he does that he was able to sort of just manage the entire situation and move on from it, even though I know that he was equally as shocked and stunned about the entire situation. Yeah, so Chris Rock, definitely, his reaction was definitely a lot better than Will Smith. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Pete. I see Coyote's hand is raised. Coyote, hi, how are you? Congratulations on completing TYFA. I saw your certificates, your brand new spanky certificate shining on LinkedIn. So let's hear from you. What do you think?
Yes, ma'am. I think I would like the word last. You guys said I was going to go for. This was the movie was actually kings of and these guys Wilson's the Wilson's dad. That was actually what they were on. And the latter meant to be especially for.
Wow, Coyote, I'm sorry, you're breaking pretty badly. I can't hear you too well.
Can you hear me?
Well, it's coming in and out. It's kind of breaking in and out, so I'm not too sure.
Okay. Hello, let me do a bit of mic check. Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now. Let's hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying that for both the Williams family, Serena and Venus family, and the movie that they won the movie for the Oscar for was for King Richard. And not going to be a social day, but I think the guy just and to be sincere, that was one of the reasons why. Now I've read his book. I read the title of the autobiography, and
oh wow,
it was so crazy that no way I will be seeing Will Smith. Yes, I see I'll be Will Smith, and I won't think about that movie, that particular scene in Oscar. I watched this movie and while watching that movie, Emancipation, I was also thinking about what happened. So, like she said, this guy is a comic, is a comedian. Chris Rock is a comedian. So I think he used his comic sense to what he was feeling. While Will Smith was just, and even the wife's reaction to it was like, guy, we needed it.
Wow, Coyote, sorry. I think
they always that Okay, ma'am.
Oh,
That's just okay.
okay. Yeah, sorry. Thanks. Can you mute again? So we did get the gist of what you said, even though I was breaking a bit. I'm looking in the chat room. Paul says Chris Rock showed emotional intelligence. He could have turned it into a stage fight, but Chris Rock turned it to a joke despite the embarrassment, right? It wasn't staged, even said. Will Smith lost his cool and let his emotions override him, apparently from what was said by Chris Rock. Would you believe, right, that these people are actually friends that have worked in different circumstances, different films, different scenarios together? So they're not strangers to each other. Do you understand? They're not strangers. They're not people that just happen to meet that day. They had a relationship going back as far as 1995. Okay, so for him to have decided to take this decision, to slap him, despite the fact that they have a history, despite the fact that he's a comedian and comedians tend to be very irreverent. They say all manner of things to get a laugh. It was amazing that he would take that route. Now, following this incident, what happened? Now, the photograph and video of that slap went viral. You trust the internet, and became the most viewed video online in 24 hours. I forget the number of views. I think it was about 5 million or 50 million or something. A lot of views anyway. So you can imagine how many people all around the world had saw this particular situation. Now, opinions were divided, but most people disapproved of his actions. Some people said that he was there defending his woman, so to speak, like a knight in shining armor. But I think to an extent, a lot of them were saying it to sort of because they like him. I got that impression from some people that spoke, but some people genuinely believe that that was the right decision that he took. But his reputation tanked. Like both Peace and Coyote have said, every time you see Will Smith in a movie, every time you see anything Will Smith, your mind immediately goes back to this incident that happened. Now, he had to resign his membership from the academy. I don't recall whether he did it willingly or they asked him to, but either way, he couldn't stay as a member of the academy. He has been banned from the academy for 10 years, which means that every movie he may want to do, if at all anybody is willing to bankroll any of his movies, is not going to be eligible for an Oscar, right? Which means that people are going to be staying away from him in great abundance, especially if they want to, win awards for their movie. His first movie after the incident, Emancipation, drew mixed reviews from critics, but mostly bad, and it failed in the box office. It didn't do too well in the box office. Now, given where this guy was coming from, the height he was at, the popularity, the wealth, and what he's having to go through now. I mean, a lot of people have hopes that he will rebound and there'll be, be restored to his former glory, so to speak. But in the meantime, he's more or less in hibernation. We haven't heard much from him following the movie first, and then when he apologized, or sort of apologized to Chris Rock in a video, we haven't really heard much from him. And you trust Hollywood, speculation will abound and people will come to their own conclusions for the purpose of sensationalism. But a lot has been said also about the relationship between him and his wife. There was an incident where she had an affair with somebody. The children too had one issue or the other. I mean, there were different reasons, why prior to that day he wasn't very balanced, as an individual. But that one moment has now been the definition of his entire career that has spanned God knows how many years, simply because when he needed to, he wasn't able to keep it in. So we can tell that this thing called emotional intelligence, as much of a buzzword as it happens to look like, is not something to be trifled with at all. I recall a couple of years ago, there was a story about one leader of the IMF. I think he was the president of the IMF. I forget his name. I know Khan was his surname. He made headlines when he was discovered to have slept with one of the housekeepers in the hotel that he was staying in. Now, some people actually suspect said that, oh, it was entrapment, like somebody who knew his flaws or his weaknesses wanted to destroy him. Whatever the case may be, everybody heard about it, and now we don't know where the man is anymore. So emotional intelligence, able to master your emotions and use it productively, is something that is so important and something that we certainly need to pay attention to. Take it out of the realm of buzzword and into a practical realm. It is more than ever one skill that we need now, because some of us are going to go out tomorrow, and some transportation official, let's call it that, let's not call them bus drivers or conductors, is going to charge an exorbitant amount to transport us from one place to the other. And we're going to think about how this thing plays into our budget and how it's thrown our budget out of whack. And it's in that mood that we have to go to the office and still be expected to give our best. Some of us work from home. It's made things easier for us, but we still have to buy the fuel to fuel our generators when light goes. And we know how much this thing is. So there's a lot really that is attacking our capacity to maintain our emotional balance. If you look at the Bible actually says that a man who is unable to master his spirit is like a city without walls. You can imagine a country without any sort of defense. You know what that means, that they are prey to anyone and anything that wants to go, to take over them or to destroy them in any way. That is what happens when you're unable to master your emotions. Okay, so let's look at some of the definitions of emotional intelligence. Some people say that very well mindset, the ability to perceive, interpret, demonstrate control, evaluate, and use emotions to communicate with and relate to others effectively and constructively. Now, this is a lot of grammar. If you break it down, obviously you can understand it. But I think the one I like the most is the one by Peter Salovey. Very simple, very to the point. He said emotional intelligence is being smart with your feelings. How do you harness this strong? Because you see, it is energy. If you're someone who is an introvert here, somebody who doesn't talk much, somebody who is quite reserved, in their outlook in life, you may not talk much, but if you are under a lot of emotion, the dam breaks and all the WhatsApp coming out. So emotion is energy. Emotion is energy that you can harness to achieve a particular goal, whether it's a sense of being underestimated, underappreciated, or the heights of being valued, and spotlighted on. Emotions are energy that we can use to productively achieve results in our personal lives and in our professional lives. So let's talk about some components of emotional intelligence. Now, the studies break it into these 5 buckets. And we're going to talk about these 5 buckets and how it translates to leadership and how that eventually translates to how you act on the job. But firstly, why do leaders need emotional intelligence? One is this: people are emotional beings. You are an emotional being, I am an emotional being. The bus conductor who is trying to make a living and doesn't mind fleecing you while doing it is also an emotional being. And because however good or bad your value system is, your emotions feed off those values and you display them in public. So if we don't know how to use emotions constructively, things will get out of control, because human beings by nature are emotional beings, right? Emotions drive a lot of our decision making. It takes a lot of training, a conscious, intentional training, to be able to keep your cool in stressful situations and make the best decision you can make under those conditions. And a lot of that too is dependent on how competent you are in whatever it is that you're doing, or what kind of experience or exposure you've had with it, right? But emotions drive a lot of our decision making. You can make decisions out of fear. You can make decisions out of elation. You can make decisions out of impulse. You can make decisions out of tiredness, They drive a lot of our decision making. Now, understanding emotions make us more effective as leaders. If I am going to be leading a team or even leading a project, let's even not talk about leading a team now. So I'm leading a project. If I can understand what makes each member of my team tick, or I can understand how I can best relate with the stakeholders on my project. It will make me more effective in how I lead my project, okay? EI helps us to know how best to approach different situations. You know when you have to be more forceful, you know when you have to be more reasonable, you know when you have to be quiet, you know how to deal with different types of personalities. It is that feeds into what we know as interpersonal skills, on the job. Now, can I get one or two other reasons that emotional intelligence is very important? Can I get one or two other reasons from you guys? Why else do you think emotional intelligence is important? I've said, you can write in the chat room, that's fine. I've mentioned 4 things here. Why else do you think emotional intelligence is important? And I think we can get some clues from the video that we've just watched. Let's have 1 or 2 people, let's know in the chat room. Why else do you think emotional intelligence is important? I would invite you to think about when you've allowed your emotions to get the best of you and the results from that incident. Have somebody saying that it's important for self-leadership. Yes. It specifically speaks to what I said about he that cannot master his spirit is like a city without walls, exposed and open to everything. It is very, very important when you're leading yourself that you are emotionally intelligent. Now, let's talk about characteristics of emotionally intelligent leaders, all right? Using the 5 components that we've discussed. Now, self-awareness. Self-awareness, is another one of those things that people talk about and it seems like something, something out there, something intangible. But you know that the better you know yourself is like you say, oh, this is the way I am. Things like, oh, this is the way I am. I know what I can take. I know what I cannot take. You can't talk to me like this. And then the higher you go, in the leadership hierarchy in your organization, people begin to, take it upon themselves to actually study you, to understand you, so that they will also know how to relate with you, okay? But when you are self-aware as a leader, you understand your own emotions. And because of this, you don't let your feelings rule you. You know when you're getting angry and you know how, when to, extricate yourself from a situation or take a step back. You know when you're getting frustrated, you know when you're getting tired and exhausted, and you're not your best at those times. So it's better for you to take a step back. They are confident people because they trust their intuition and don't let their emotions get out of control. So when you have self-awareness as an emotionally intelligent leader, you are able to control your reactions. They say that there's a space between someone's actions and your reaction. And that is where you plan what your reaction or your response, I should say, to that specific situation will be. They are willing to take an honest look at themselves. Self-aware people are people that recognize their strengths and their weaknesses, right? And are confident enough to know this is what I'm good at. They are confident to know that this is what I'm not so good at, where I will need help, where I will need some help, So they take that honest look at themselves. They know their strengths and their weaknesses. They work on this area so they can perform better. The second is self-regulation. Now, the difference between self-awareness and self-regulation is awareness is knowing, regulation is acting upon that knowledge. And that means thinking before they act. Now, there's some of us that know that there's some foods, right? That when we see it, we will eat more than we should. Can I get a witness? If you're one of them, things like amala, things like with the granny wedu, if you're that kind of person, things like what now? It's now that food, that food. Somebody says fried dodo, you see now. They begin to show themselves. Fried dodo. Let's hear your what's it called? Your food mumu button. Paul's one is fried dodo. Let me see from other people. What is that food that you know that once you see it, it takes the grace of God for you to not do beyond yourself? I remember when I was young, my younger sister, she loved this fried dodo. She loved it so much. And we used to know her as the dodo master. We used to call her the dodo master. There was a particular day I remember was rice and beans and dodo. And I don't know whether she had told herself something in her mind that today is her and that dodo. I don't know what it was. But she ate so much of that dodo. She ate so much of it that eventually she threw everything up. Because she was so full, there was simply no more room in her stomach to accommodate more dodo, right? And people who self-regulate know that they need to stay away from some certain things because they haven't learned how to master themselves when it comes to that thing, all right? So because of that, they think very well before they act. They think very well before they get into some certain environments. They're able to read the room and understand what things may trigger them, to act in a way that they would not, they prefer not to act. That is what self-regulation means. They simply think before they act. Another one is motivation. People with emotional intelligence are motivated. Why? Because they recognize how far their ability to master their emotions can take them, which is why they are willing to defer immediate results for long-term success, what we call delayed gratification. They're highly productive, they love a challenge, and are very effective in whatever they do. There's some names I can call here, but I don't want to make anyone jealous. Now, emotionally intelligent leaders are empathetic people. And empathy is something that we talk about so much, especially now in HR, that people are going through a lot. You have to be empathetic. Empathetic, yes, empathetic. Empathetic. You can't afford to judge everything too strictly because people are dealing with a lot of stuff. And for you to have empathy for others is being able to put yourself in their shoes and understand where they're coming from. However, empathy doesn't mean you stop being professional or you bypass doing your job in order to accommodate people's emotions. And I think I need to stress that because we can fall too far on one side of things. Recently, I had an experience. I was part of a DC panel, that's a disciplinary committee panel at my workplace. And the person who was, the focus of that panel had recently lost his brother, at least he told us, had recently lost his brother, and was now responsible for his brother's two children. And unfortunately, what he was brought to the panel for was a very, very serious situation. And it was quite difficult to make him understand the gravity of the situation while knowing that he was dealing with a recent grief. And that is one of the decisions situations that you have to deal with as a leader that will test your emotional intelligence. Because on the one hand, you have a job to do for your organization. On the other hand, you're looking at this individual and you recognize that they're going through one or two things, right? But the gift of EI in a leader is that they're able to manage relationships, listening and relating to others while executing their responsibilities. So the fact that you have to do a tough job doesn't mean you have to be unfeeling. It doesn't mean you have to be distant. It just means that you have to let your person know that, look, this isn't personal. And we do understand your personal issues, but this is about doing the job correctly. And finally, social skills. There are people who are team players. There are people who are confident enough in themselves to share the stage with the people that they lead or the people that are stakeholders on their projects. They are not the sort of person that are so insecure that they want everything to be me. We say in HR that we get those red flags when we see the I did this, I did that. When it's not just you that makes your whole organization now. The others had some input on these tasks that you are asked to do, but they're secure enough to put others' success sometimes before their own and sometimes alongside their own. They can manage disputes, they're excellent communicators, and are masters at building and maintaining relationships. Now, why the leaders of emotional intelligence? We've said a number of things, but some of the things that I wanted to highlight is number one, it enables you to be flexible with how you lead, okay? People may not know that. I mean, they say, if you ask you what kind of leader are you, you can say, oh, this is the kind of leader that I am. But the truth is that there are situations or circumstances that require a different kind of leadership. These are the four generally talked about leadership styles. And the truth is that there isn't one that is bad, right? For instance, when you hear autocratic, you tend to think, oh, somebody who is domineering, somebody who doesn't listen to other people, somebody who wants his way or the highway. But the truth is that there are some circumstances where you have to be autocratic in your leadership style. And autocratic, I should say, doesn't necessarily mean that you dominate people with your way. In the good sense, what it essentially means is that in that situation, you are not inviting much, feedback, because the people. Let me give you an example to explain what I mean. So imagine that you have a project and you have a bunch of graduate trainees to run the project. Essentially, who they are just foot soldiers, to help you in that project. There isn't a lot they know, right? So they're going to be looking to you to direct them. And in that case, you're going to find that a lot of the time, you're having to do things like say, do this, do this, do it this way, do it that way. They will come to you and say, this is the situation, what do I do? And then you have to tell them what to do. You're not inviting their, oh, what do you think we should do? In some cases, obviously there's room for that there, but you are telling them what to do. In such circumstances, you may need a more autocratic type of leadership. And so you need to know that. And that's what emotional intelligence does for you. It helps you to recognize, okay, this is the way I'm feeling. I'm feeling a bit frustrated because people are not getting to where I want to go. I'm asking them to give me feedback, to give their input, and there's a reluctance. It could possibly be because they don't feel equipped or capable of giving you the kind of feedback that you're asking for. And in those circumstances, you may need to be a little bit autocratic in your leadership style. When it comes to democratic, in those situations, you tend to find people who are at, if not equal exposure and experience than you, but at least close to you, so that they can have autonomy over some of the tasks that they're having to handle on that project. So as a consequence of that, you can invite their feedback, you can invite their input, knowing that they will learn valuable input to that specific situation. But having said all this, it is not, sometimes you may have a general leadership style, but you apply different leadership styles to different individuals on your team. I have a team lead in my organization now who is naturally a democratic leader. He likes doing things, in the open. He wants everybody to have a say and whatnot. But what has happened is now that his subordinates believe that he should be doing the same thing that they are doing, going so far as to say that he doesn't work as hard as they do, or rather than assign tasks to some certain people, why doesn't he do some things himself? When I heard about it, I was like, oh my word. I told you straight out. I said, look, it is your fault, because you've given them the impression that we're all together. There's no difference between you and I. We're all on the same, we're all the same. And I know that democratic leaders, in some instances, is because they're not always sure about their own decision making. So they feel that the more input they gain into that particular decision, they make less mistakes. Do you understand? But depending on the type of person you're talking about, especially when you have somebody who is a dominant personality on your team that is a subordinate, it may look like an act of weakness to that person, and it's like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's about. If it was me, I would just tell you what you need to do. I wouldn't be asking everybody's opinion all the time, okay? Now, the laissez-faire leadership style, I think that's the one I'm okay, let me talk about this one because I think it's important. Is the one I tend to favor, which is everybody on your team is an expert in their own right. The role you are playing is that of a coordinator, the person who makes the project a cohesive unit, and everybody knows what they're doing. But you find that you don't always have people on your team who know what they're doing. And some of them you have to be autocratic with, some of them you have to be democratic with, some of them, they know what they're doing. So all you're doing is making sure that they're moving in the direction you want them to move in. And in terms of transformational leadership, it's not all the time you need to transform something. Sometimes all you really need to do is to harness the best of what's available, not change it altogether. So being emotionally intelligent enables you to be flexible in the style of leadership that you engage in per time. Another reason why leaders need emotional intelligence, because there's a lot of demand on the position of a leader. When you are called a leader or you're recognized as a leader, there's certain expectations that come with that position. Yes, there are perks that come with the position, but there are also expectations, and some of them might be challenging to match up to. I'm going to show you the example of a particular person to see the situation that arose in while she was a leader. And I'd like us to just take 1 or 2 minutes to discuss this, and then we'll round up. Let me give you the POV before I continue. This lady, the one you saw on the left with the dark t-shirt and jeans that was gyrating back and forth, is actually the Prime Minister of Finland. Now, this video surfaced of her at a party, dancing the way she was dancing, drinking with her friends and all. And there was a huge, she went viral, obviously, and there was a huge backlash. There was a lot of back and forth over, because, she's a woman, that's why people are talking, etc., etc., etc. But I want you to see how she handled it.
Nämä videot on yksityisiä, ne on kuvattu yksityisissä tiloissa. Olen harmissani siitä, että nämä ovat levinneet julkisuuteen. Kyse on ollut siitä, että olen ollut viettämässä kavereiden kanssa iltaa, juhlinut railakkaastikin kyllä, tanssinut ja laulanut.
Käytettiinkö näissä tilanteissa päihteitä?
Alkoholia, kyllä.
Ei huumeita?
No ei ainakaan minun tietääkseni.
Tällä videolla puhutaan jauhojengistä. Osaatteko kertoa, mikä se on?
En osaa kertoa, en tiedä siitä mitään.
Onko vielä jotain muita videoita kenties, jolla teitä mahdollisesti on ehkä kiristetty?
Ei minua ole kiristetty millään videoilla, ei näilläkään videoilla. Nämä ovat yksityisiä videoita ja niitä ei ole tarkoitettu julkisuuteen.
Missä ne on kuvattu? Milloin ne on kuvattu ja kuka ne on kuvannut?
Nämä on kuvattu kesällä ja ne on yksityisasunnoissa kuvattu. En kommentoi tietenkään, kenen kotona nämä on olleet.
Pystytkö ajankohdasta kertomaan?
Now, before I move on with this, let's talk about this a little bit. Let me hear from you. Given what you know, how would you say she handled the situation? Once again, this is the Prime Minister of Finland. At the time of this video, she was 36 years old. She's the youngest ever Prime Minister of Finland, and I think, I need to fact check on this, but I think she was she's the first female, okay? And she went to a party with her friends, somebody videoed it, did a video, and somehow it leaked, and people got to know. And that was her answering questions on it. So let me hear from you guys. How do you think she handled it? Any volunteers, or do I volunteer you? Okay, I see Endurance in the room. Hello, Endurance, how are you? Let's hear from you. How do you think she handled it? Endurance, can you hear me? Okay, maybe she's not in a position to answer. Who else can I call? Adijat, you want to give us your opinion? What do you think? How do you think you handled it?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, I can hear you. Chata,
Yes,
congratulations again.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
What do you think?
As far as I'm concerned, from my own view, it's her private life. But the fact that she's a public figure doesn't mean she cannot have private life. And the fact that they asked her that they mentioned something flower, and she said, we're thinking like they were trying to point to the fact that probably she was actually doing drug along with the alcohol. And she said she knows nothing about it. She didn't get hysteric. She just answered them calmly. And that's just, to me, she has handled it right.
Okay, fantastic. Let me hear from a guy's perspective. Stephen, are you able to talk? Can I hear from you? What do you think? Okay, maybe Stephen can't answer. So that guy is in the room. Paul, are you able to talk? Okay, I see Rashid as well. Let me hear from Paul first.
Okay. I think because of the way she handled it, I think it's not much of a big deal because we are emotional beings, and then she decided to go out with her friend. So I'm not sure that's her lifestyle. Like I'm not. I think she just did it once in a while, and a calm explanation to the press, I think that makes it easy. Unlike if it was our brother Donald Trump that was caught in this.
Okay, let me not go in that direction. So where I'm getting at is this. When you're a leader, it puts you in a position where you are considered like a standard of behavior for other people. That's the truth. So in a way, because your life appears to be like a magnifying glass. In fact, I could go so far as to say that when you take up a leadership role, you unconsciously have given permission for your life to be critically examined. So if people are going to be asking questions about the private life of a leader, it is not out of the way. Why? Because our choosing you as a leader is like we believe you are the best of us. And if you're the best of us, we expect you to behave that way. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, three things. On the second hand, she broke a glass ceiling for women. There aren't many women prime ministers. There are more now than there used to be. I think there was Angela Merkel who has now dropped the role. There was a lady in New Zealand who has now, I think she's left as well. And now there's a lady in Finland, and I think Italy as well, a couple of other countries here and there that have female prime ministers. So she was sort of like part of an elite group of females who had made it to that level in their countries. And so I think there was a bit of an onus on her to conduct herself in the way that particular expectation, demanded of her. That's another possible way of looking at it. But the way she handled the questions that were thrown at her showed some form of maturity and emotional intelligence. She didn't lose her cool. She responded in a calm, factual manner, insisting that it was private. There was no reason it ought to have been exposed unless somebody was trying to be mischievous. And she didn't allow anyone to see her being frazzled. Now, it is very, very possible, and I think that is actually what has happened, that following the way she handled the situation, it's not even a big deal so much anymore in the country. Some people who may want to make mischief may decide to bring it up at a later date somewhere else. But at the end of the day, it happened, she dealt with it, and she moved on. The last reason why, well, not the last reason, but the last reason I have here that leaders need emotional intelligence is because of what the workplace requires. We all are career people in one way or the other. And we know that the workplace can be a very demanding place. Now, if you are a leader in the workplace, you have to be the one to create the work climate that enables your team to perform the very best that they can, which is why we go into this thing about bad bosses, right? Why, oh, this person is a bad boss, this person is a toxic boss. Remember the the Twitter space where we had this toxic organization, toxic bosses thing, and everybody talked about how this person does this. And you will find out that most of the issues were not necessarily structural. They were more of leadership, how the person in question made people feel when they were around him or how he treated people, all right? When you're an emotionally mature or emotionally intelligent leader, you're able to create an environment that it strengthens employee performance. People want to work with you, right? Because it evokes trust between you and your team. People are ready to give you their best, right? Emotionally intelligent people tend to be more authentic and transparent. They keep their feelings in check. And I think part of the reason why a lot of people were a little bit offended by what the Finnish prime minister did was like, this was a moment where you were unguarded to the point that somebody could film you in that situation and it went viral. Because remember, this is not just about her private life, it's about the reputation of her country as well. International people that view that may ask themselves, do we want to deal with this sort of person? Or could it have changed their perspective about Finland and what Finnish people are like? That is how weighty the position of a leader is. One act on your behalf can, smear your entire country. Paul mentioned Donald Trump now. Now there are pluses and there are minuses to him. But during the time that Donald Trump was president, there was a number of things that happened that people kept on looking at America, they're looking at America in a different light. I personally think it was because he was a very disruptive individual. He didn't want the status quo. He wanted things to be different. So I'm not going to go into whether or not he's a better president than somebody else. I just think that he was someone who was unexpected. They were not ready for him. And because of that, their reaction was quite, they reacted because of that, all right? They make well-informed decisions and are very resilient under pressure while displaying a higher rate of empathy. Something that I learned recently is that when you are a leader, right, sometimes the burden of carrying the entire team can come on your shoulders. And that's the truth. You may look at things and say, you know what, I'm dealing with my own stuff. I mean, I can't carry somebody else's burden on my shoulders while I'm trying to sort myself out. But you recognize that your role means that you've got to be the big brother, so to speak, or the mother or the father in this situation. Because if your team is floundering, you as a leader, you cannot afford to flounder, right? And these things count because when you come out of that crisis situation, what your team is going to remember is how you were the rock that they could hold on to when everything looks like it was messy. Same thing with you as an individual career professional. When you're able to maintain your emotional balance, stability, when everything seems like it's chaotic, people tend to remember how you reacted in that situation. And it feeds into the decisions they make when they're saying, are they going to promote you? Are they going to give you more pay? Are they going to recommend you for a bigger role that attracts, more visibility? So it's important for us as individuals and as leaders, because I believe everyone, is a leader one way or the other, whether you're leading yourself or you're leading your team. It's important for you to be able to keep your emotional stability even when the pressure is really high. And then emotional intelligence distinguishes leaders from mere high performers. And this is one of the dangers that we have in the workplace, especially among we HR people. When we see high performing people, we automatically assume that it means that they're going to be good leaders. Sometimes they are just good workers, right? And they don't have those other attributes that are great for a leadership position. But when you can recognize that somebody has emotional intelligence, you know that it's not just about the technical skills, they also have the behavioral skills to match. Now, finally, how do we improve our emotional intelligence? Because that is a big question, isn't it? We talked about a lot of it. What do we do? Number one is that you have to be intentional about it. Be able to recognize where your weaknesses are and outline steps about how you're going to address those weaknesses. Because sometimes experience doesn't take care of it. I mean, as a mom, I can tell you that I've learned to be very patient. I used to be very, very hot-tempered, very, very impatient. But when you have children and you want to be speaking positive things into their destinies, you have to become very, very patient. In fact, being married requires a lot of patience, and that can help you improve your EQ. When you learn how to handle your husband or your wife when they get you really, really mad, it tends to help you when you're in the workplace as well. When somebody else wants to push some buttons, because you have trained yourself to learn how to react to people. But those are just circumstances of life. That if you're not intentional about it, you may just allow this opportunity to pass you by. You can learn more about emotional intelligence. Knowledge is a weapon. The more you know about what it means to be more emotional intelligence, like you've learned tonight, or you're learning tonight as we round off, the better you become at being emotionally intelligent. You need to observe how you react to people. Do you rush to judgment before you know all the facts? Do you tend to stereotype? To be honest with you, one of the reasons why stereotypes are very prevalent is because they enable you to know how to react to people. If I can put you in the right box, I know how to relate with you, all right? But some of us do it to the point that it now becomes a bias. If I'm able to put this person in the box, I believe that anybody I put in that box is the same type of person, and so I should relate the same way with them. And that is the danger of stereotyping and bias, okay? But so you need to find out whether that is what you do. And if that is what you do, then you have to remember that every individual needs to be treated on that individual basis. You can do a self-evaluation. There's a test that I've put here. When I'm done and I stop sharing the screen, I'm going to post that test in the chat room. You can click on it, take the test, see if it will help. It may be wrong in some areas, but some of these tests are right in some areas and they could be helpful. You need to identify your triggers. What are those things that tend to set you off? Just like habits, emotions are in a loop that you tend to behave the same way towards something. That's how you know how you feel about it. If you're sort of person who doesn't love fried dodo like Paul does now, you know that if they bring fried dodo in front of you, you're just going to push it away. There's no question about it. I don't like fried dodo. Maybe at some point you ate it and it was a bad experience, and after that you just didn't eat it anymore. Emotions to follow that sort of loop like habits do. So it's become your habit that, look, I'm not going to eat fried dodo no matter where they offer it to me. It takes you being intentional and saying, you know what? It was a long time ago when that happened to me. Let me try again and see whether you have a different reaction this time around, okay? That was what will make you change that loop or amend that loop. Same thing with emotional intelligence. When you know what your triggers are, you can do something different that will change your reaction to it. Surround yourself with emotionally intelligent people. They say what? You tell me who you look, they show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. If you want to be emotionally intelligent, then it's great to hang around those who are. Examine how you react in stressful situations. Do you go numb? Are you quick to panic? You have to practice keeping your emotions under control when things go wrong. Now, they say that women panic first, and then men tend to keep their head cool. That's a general note. We know that individually, it's not at all the same thing. There's some women that have a very, very strong head in stressful situations. In fact, they live for those kind of situations. They just know how to be themselves in those situations, how to take care or manage the situations well, okay? But if you're the kind of person that you tend to react in a panicky way, you may train yourself to just step away for a few minutes, get yourself together, and then come back. Or if you're all over the place, call someone you trust and say, guy, I am not balanced right now. I need some minutes. Can you handle this while I'm away? And that helps as well. Take responsibility for your actions and examine or think about how well your actions will affect others before you take those actions. And that is all. Thank you very much. I am happy to answer your questions. If you're one of our guests tonight and you haven't connected with me, please, I'll be happy for you to do that. This is my LinkedIn. There's a newsletter called The Talent Guide that I write on LinkedIn. My Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube handles are also available. Basically, you can find me either as Tony Talks Talent or Oluwatoyin Kodikon. Fantastic. That is the end of the session. So as we round off, I mean, more or less round it off anyway. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have, or describe a scenario that you were part of, and let's see whether we can work through it. Because the truth is that we can say easier said than done, but there are some situations that it's really, really very hard to cope with, especially when it's with your boss in the office or that teammate that you don't have a choice but to work with every day. And you've just decided, look, I'm just going to ignore this person. I'm just going to deal with it this way. But the truth is this. You're always going to meet people like that in life. And some of these people may be strategically placed in such a way that they will feed into decisions that will affect your career in a very, very impactful way. And so you really can't just say the best way to deal with these people is to just ignore them or to just pretend as if they don't exist or to just move on. You really just can't do that. Okay. So you're just going to have to find a way to deal with these people. All right, let me hear your questions. If anyone has any, let's talk.
Hello, ma'am.
All right. Hi, Adijat, I can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. I want to share a personal experience, something that happened to me recently.
Okay.
So can I go on?
Please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. My new boss is someone that immediately joined us. It's so obvious that I wasn't really comfortable working with some of us. So it was giving different attitude, showing that it wasn't really comfortable with working with us, to the extent that it got to me that at times I normally get to the office early. I'll get to the office. I got to the office one day around 6:30 a.m. and I started crying. Serious cry. I was weeping. Then when the office assistant came in, she just saw me. She turned back. I didn't know how the whole thing just came to that level. Fine. It was the one that brought in the new financial controller. They now did appraisal, quarterly appraisal for the last quarter of 2022. In my appraisal, he wrote in it that I will get salary review in the next appraisal. And the person that he brought in that was on mat leave, we have deliverables. I have my KPI, I have by default, we are all marketers. We have deliverables of account opening, fixed deposit mobilization, and business generation. So I think I only have 3 account opening, no loan booking and your stuff. And that person that he brought in too had 0, like myself. And this person was on mat leave, and you gave this person 7% increase. You told me that, you wrote in my own that I will get increase in the increments in the next appraisal. So the first quarter of this year, the organization invited HR consultant for HR process review. The consultant's role was more of advisory. I was the one doing the whole job. And whenever this appraisal is being done, I'll still be the one to roll out the letter, to do the payroll, the review, everything. Everything we do is manually. I was also looking at myself that even after all this thing, people are still telling me that I'm not doing anything. So I was just like pissed with my MD, with this person that I brought in. I was just looking at them, okay, people, you are the one ruling. If we have management meeting, this MD will call this person into his office. Both of them will decide for the management. So she's more like, well, she's with the MD, she's the MD's person. So I was just looking at, there was nothing I could do. So something happened we normally have monthly performance review. So at the last MPR, meanwhile, I was not doing majority of the HR consultant job. Hello? Hello? Hello?
We can hear you. Somebody was unmuted, so I've muted them.
Okay. So I was the one doing the HR consultancy job, and the whole stuff, the job was too much on me. I was meant to go on leave. I wasn't granted leave because I was doing that job. So I was just emotionally drained. I know I needed a break. So we're having the monthly performance review. The MD couldn't stay. So he instructed the general manager to take over the meeting. So while we got in there, I was now trying to chat with my daughter. The general manager was saying, okay, people should stop the NPR, you people, you're not serious. Nobody should be watching video on their phone. I wasn't actually watching video on my phone. I was trying to chat with my daughter. Then a video pop up. This lady that was the MD's person now came in. She happens to be the secretary of the NPR. I just dropped my phone with the fact that, okay, this person is coming in, I dropped my phone. She just looked at me, HR, you need to drop your phone. I don't know what just happened. I was just like, no. The GM said, HR, drop your phone. HR, drop your phone. I just walked out of the meeting. I don't know how that thing came to be. And I went to my office. I just chatted with my daughter, dropped my phone on my table, and walked back to the meeting. The GM just told me, HR, excuse us. I knew I messed up. It wasn't about me dropping my phone. At that point in time, it wasn't about me dropping my phone. It was about the whole thing on my head, as in, oh, all this thing. At the end of the day, I'm not doing anything. This one thinks he wants to control me. I just fled. I knew I messed up. So I know I'm the custodian of sanction grid and everything. I know what it entails. I was actually issued a memo, and in my response, that was my first time since all my working years, over 15 years, almost 20 years of my working years, of getting a memo. And my response was just that I take responsibility for my actions. The management should give me opportunity to make amends. I was expecting my MD to sanction me, but my MD has not even responded. Why? Because now people are resigning in droves. And it's so obvious. People are saying, oh, this place is toxic. This man, you don't want me to work with you. People are actually pointing it out to him. I know probably he didn't want to annoy me. I don't know. And I am expecting to be sanctioned. Fine. I didn't believe I could do something like that. But then I couldn't just handle my emotion at that level. As the HR, I know I'm supposed to do better, but then it's only human. That's just my experience. I'm only human. That shows I'm human.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Abijat. I can't imagine the amount of pressure on you that would have motivated you to do that. And of course, context matters. But I think, like you've also said, that it's better to master our emotions and then react to whatever it is that is the stressor, rather than to act in the moment. You know, we've discussed that, and well, I hope things will work out better for you, but well for you. It's great that you took responsibility for your actions. That always shows a sign of maturity. But it just goes to show that this thing called emotional intelligence is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to master as a skill, which is why we have to continue reviewing and asking ourselves and, you know, examining ourselves. Because, you know, there are some latent pressures that we are feeling that we've suppressed. And then it suddenly comes out at one moment that we never expected it to. And maybe that's what happened to Will Smith, which is why I'm quite sympathetic, even though I don't condone or support what he did. And I think that it's possible he could have talked himself out of it, but that might just have been the culmination of a lot of pent up anger Like I mentioned, there was some history with the wife and, you know, her having an affair, etc., etc. And so far, we haven't seen a lot of expected reaction from him regarding that matter. Maybe Chris Rock, for that moment in time, became the target of his, represented an avenue to vent his frustration. It was unfortunate that he didn't consider the impact afterwards, because he still won the Oscar, believe it or not, he still won it. I guess at that point in time they couldn't change what was on the card, but I mean it wasn't the right place, or it wasn't a good time for the frustrations to seep out, you know. So in your case, Adijat, I believe that knowing that you you would have preferred to have acted differently, whatever comes as a result of this, you will bear that in mind as you are reacting or responding to whoever it is. If it does come up again, you bear that in mind. But like I said, that is life. How we wish we could change people to the way that would make things easier for us, but it just doesn't always happen that way. So we just have to be guided in how we respond. Thank you so much, Adijat. I appreciate you sharing that. It's a very real, very relatable experience. All right, so time is far spent. I wouldn't want to keep us much longer. I want to thank you all for attending this. Happy to see you. I've posted the link to that test that I mentioned in the chat room. I would encourage us to click on it before we close the meeting for today. So one last thing I'm going to leave you guys with is this. Everything we go through is for a reason. I don't mean that means we should expose ourselves to just anything. But like I say, you know, if we didn't need to solve problems, then they wouldn't need us to be in the organization at all. Even this our country, Nigeria, we know that a lot of people who go outside this country do very well because they've learned how to deal with very stressful situations and come out on the other side. So this pressure won't last forever. It is building something in us that will enable us to thrive as we rise up in the ranks of our profession. So see it as an asset, not always the easiest thing to do, but it's helpful for us. I can tell you from experience that being a mother of 5, dealing with those children helps me better deal with different people in the office. So while it's not pleasant to go through, there is a benefit at the end of the day. All right, take care, everyone. God bless. You know, you can reach me however, you know, you reach me. If there's anything you want to do to talk, you have conversation, get something off your chest, I'm happy to help you out. So till then, or till next time, I should say, adieu. Members of the T3 network, Hangout is coming up on September 10. Please make it a date. We'll give you more information as we draw closer to the time. Take care, everyone, and God bless. As your host, I will remain in the meeting room until you all exit. Have a great week ahead.